Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Executive Encore. This podcast is where we empower women to have a fulfilling and impactful next chapter. We believe that your wealth of experience is your greatest asset, and we're here to explore the incredible opportunities that await you after a long corporate career and a successful career as well. Whether you're considering consulting, entrepreneurship, or a new leadership role, this is a space for inspiration and practical advice from my guests to help you thrive with purpose. So today, I am so fortunate to bring to you a gentleman, Giuseppe Grammatico.
You got it.
Giuseppe. Okay, Giuseppe is going to talk to us about creating freedom and security through business ownership. That is one of the options that we have after we leave a corporate career, is to actually have business ownership. But Giuseppe is going to talk about it in a different time frame as well, which I think you will find very interesting. He's a master at helping individuals find the perfect franchise fit that aligns not just with financial goals, but with a desired lifestyle. Giuseppe, is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today on Executive Encore. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, Patricia. No, I appreciate it. I know I have a long name, so GG or G, the initials, but I really excited to share today, and thanks for the invite. I'm really
Okay.
looking forward to it.
All right. Yeah. So let's jump in because many women in our audience have built incredible careers with good income and now find themselves at a crossroads. And it's not so much about the income, but it's about how the income or the income that they're going to have fits with their lifestyle. They also want to leverage their skills for a more desirable, flexible, and what you and I've talked about is security after corporate life, because corporate life does give you the impression sometimes that it is secure. Okay,
Right.
we business owners know that there's other options, that corporate life is not so secure, especially when we see some of our colleagues and our friends being given their retirement package. It's interesting how they label it as retirement package when they're really not ready to retire. So, our first point, Giuseppe, is the idea of creating that safety net. Can you walk us through how someone can start franchise while they are keeping their day job?
Absolutely. We live in interesting times, right? Staying at a
Hmm.
company, maybe your entire career. We tend to see less and less of that. We tend to see a lot more layoffs. We tend to see people switch from job to job. And my biggest point, if there's one takeaway from today, is that control what you can control, and in control in that you always want to be proactive. When we talk about creating that safety net is a way of being proactive in looking at a franchise as a business that you can run while maintaining your job. So whether you're thinking of potentially retiring, or you anticipate a layoff, or just, hey, I'm not happy with my job, and I'm thinking of change, that safety net, that backup plan, it could be a franchise that could be run part time while you're, as I mentioned, maintaining the job, and maybe you transition to a full time efforts later on. Not every franchise, will that work with any franchise? No, it's really for the franchises that offer the additional support, that have a kind of a manager type of training program. But this is a great proactive way of saying, let me get into business, keep my income while the business gets set up. Maybe I hire a general manager, and then eventually I can leave that job, or if I anticipate that layoff, I can transition full time and not have to worry about, okay, losing my job and then figuring out what's next. It's being proactive, so that essentially you don't miss a beat, and you truly protect yourself.
Mhm, mhm. And what you said about the powerful way of uh, reclaiming some control in case something does happen. It's a great proactive idea. If you can take a look at it, are you able to tell us some of the names of some of them that might be interesting to look at?
There are lots out there. Industry wise, I'll break it down by industry. Home services, you tend to have
Hmm.
so things in the, we'll call it mosquito spraying, roofing replacement and repair and maintenance, cleaning. Not, this is specific to the franchise, because some industries have, essentially, you'll have a franchise avatar. and who that specific franchise is looking for. So you can have two franchises in the cleaning space. One will require you to be full time in the business for that first year to get it up and running and started. Others will allow you to hire a general manager day one. So it really
Mm,
depends on the brand itself. There's a company, Two Maids, that is a residential and commercial cleaning type of business, and they will allow you to have a manager. Now, you know, what's really important, and I want people to avoid some of the mistakes I made, is that you definitely have to find that right franchise that allows for that, what we call semi-absentee or part-time
right.
ownership, and you want to look for the training and support involved. But equally as important, and this is literally equally as important, and this is the mistake I made, was you need to find the right manager as well. Sometimes the franchisor will help you and assist you in finding that individual, but you need to be on the same page. So when you do hire that general manager and you're keeping your day job, you want to make sure that manager, and this is a document that you can create, it lists when you are available. Because if it's just at lunchtime, they know to contact you between 12 and 1 p.m. And if the best means of communication is email, you jot that in a document so they understand exactly when you could be reached, and equally as important, what decisions they can make. I became
Mhm.
a bottleneck in my own business, so I want to prevent people from not making the same mistakes I did, where I had to essentially approve everything. So you can kind of tell them, what decisions they can make, what decisions have to wait until after hours, until that conversation goes, but getting really clear and putting together in a Google document so that it's live. It can be easily updated, and then you can run that also by the franchisor to make sure nothing was missing in that document of responsibilities.
Mhm. So you just made me think of something there that this is a skill that a lot of women have developed through their corporate careers is being able to get out of the way, not be the bottleneck, but have the proper systems in place so that the business basically can run under a manager and you don't have to be face to face with clients. So it is possible. I can see that. Yeah.
It is a franchise is a system, right? So you kind of
Hmm.
reverse engineer it and say, how do I find the right franchise? And we look at things like skill sets, the time commitment that you can invest, the actual investment itself, the role in the business, but also figuring out in that semi-absentee model, working again in reverse to say, okay, I found the right franchise. What does my role look like? And it's maybe 12 o'clock at lunchtime every day, and then nights and weekends for in-person meetings or Zoom calls and things like that. But really figuring out what is the ideal fit so that you can figure out from day one to day 365 a year later what that role is going to be, what are the changes, and what that transition plan looks like.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, so this leads to something that is really interesting and perhaps a little counterintuitive, and that's the idea that you champion, and that is owning a franchise can actually be less risky than a traditional job. You want to say more about that?
Absolutely. So number one is part of that. A franchise is a business. A franchise is what I call a business on training wheels. So it's not
Hmm.
that just because my neighbor does well in franchise A doesn't mean you should be buying the exact same one. It really comes down to what you bring to the table, the skill set, the transferable skill set. Not that you had experience in financial services like I did way back when, over 2 decades ago. What was this transferable skill set? It was networking. It was sales meetings, sales in general, and relationship building. Those are those skill sets that will work anywhere. So a big part of franchising is that you align with the brand that is a great fit, is going to support you in the ways that you need to be supported. For example, that's that part-time owner. So you want to align with them, that you match the franchise avatar, who their ideal franchisee is. That's going to be really important. And again, there's always going to be risk with a franchise, but you can control the hours you're putting in, the attitude, not relying on 20 different bosses. I know I had that in the financial services side where I just had boss on top of boss, and there was this really high hierarchy. So if you messed up, you probably heard 20 times, as I jokingly say. But when you take a step back and you look at a job, you may work, you're in your career, you've been working with the company for a while, and they're obviously going to be different sizes and different hierarchies. But ultimately, do you control anything? And the answer, for the most part, is no. In that you don't control in how the business is run, unless you are the owner. If it's a publicly traded company, you have to really, make the shareholders happy. And if that means increasing numbers and layoffs, you're going to be the first to get laid off. And we've seen that. And I work with those individuals. You're typically one source of income. So with a franchise, which is a business, you have multiple sources of income, and you can bolt on other businesses and to take advantage of that business and the relationships you've built. But not only do you have one source of income, but we also, as I talk about in my book, we blindly invest in a 401k. And when I say blindly, I simply mean that we don't manage, control the actual investments themselves. We may allocate 10% here and 20% in fixed income securities, but ultimately we don't control the outcomes there. So I feel like there's less and less control. We can lose our job at any point in time. We may or may not get a severance. Maybe we were promised a severance, but financially the company can't afford it. So we can only control our attitudes going into work, and we can't control how we safeguard our careers, the
Mhm.
safety net. So that's why I'm a big believer in having a business, a franchise on the side. And there are other options in vehicles, but I like franchising in that there's a lot more control, and there's multiple revenue streams that
Mhm.
you can have within the business.
So actually, you're creating your own economy, right? So you're not depending on a, another business, your employer to create an economy, or the country, whatever government to create economy. You are creating your own, and it really does. What you've said, it really does reframe what security looks like, right? It's not about depending on one employer. It's about building a future for yourself where there is some resilient financial options, right? In doing something outside of being employed. So now for the final and perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle is, how does the owning a franchise allow you to have a lifestyle that you've always dreamt of while you were working for an employer?
Yeah, so a franchise is a vehicle, right? Depending, the product or service will vary. It may be a brick and mortar gym or restaurant. It may be a home service business like roofing or cleaning or mosquito spraying. So that vehicle really has to align with what you're trying to accomplish. So I give the example of I we were growing our family. This is going back a couple decades, and starting a family, I should say. And I did not want a 5 hour door to door commute, which is what my commute was into New York City. And I knew
Mhm.
there needed to be a change. So my why and the reason for doing this was to spend time with my family, but it was time freedom. It's one of the five freedoms that Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach talks about, and that was the
Mhm.
most important. I made great money. Money can only drive you so long and so far. It's great to make money, but ultimately, if you're going to be working nonstop every day of the week with no end in sight, there are other important things, and time freedom was the big one for me. So aligning yourself with a franchise, number one, will give you that unfair advantage. We figured out the systems, the product, the service, whatever that widget is that you're selling, and we have the systems in place. We have AI that we can utilize to keep the expenses low, and have an assistant on call 24/7 in the event a customer does call after hours. So it's really aligning with that franchisor with the support systems in place that can help you achieve that time freedom. So it's really speaking with other franchisees to ask them about their experience, and speaking with the franchisor to ask them, hey, this is my situation. Is this doable? If it's not doable, they will let you know. The worst thing they could do is award you a franchise for not the right fit specifically for that brand. So
Mhm.
having that business and systems in place, yes, it's a lot of work, in the very beginning. Don't expect time freedom or financial freedom initially, but those systems in place, the training, the train the trainer, bringing on that general manager will allow you to take a step back and not work in the business and maybe take every call, but work on the business, work on strategy,
Mhm.
work on certain synergies of working with other franchisees in the area, or expansion, maybe buying additional locations or investing in additional territories, expanding that business, while all not forgetting the whole purpose of doing this, and it's that time freedom. So yes, anytime you add something, it's going to cost you some time, but the goal is not to be in that business 40, 50, 60 hours a week. It's to
Yeah.
eventually back off the business, have the right people in place that are better at you than in marketing, better at you in sales, which is another life lesson that I had to learn the hard way. I thought I had to be the expert, but having those people in place so that the business thrives, there's a future in there, there's a career in the business for them, and they have some financial rewards. Maybe it's a phantom equity, which I highly recommend, where that general manager is getting a percent, a quarterly distribution of the profits, but really, allowing you to back off, deal with the big picture stuff. And then when it comes time to sell 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that buyer does not want to replace, they don't mind replacing you as long as you are that semi absentee owner. If you're putting in 80 hours a week, they're going to say, well, I have to now replace you and now still pull out an income. So the less you're involved in allowing those systems, the more valuable that business is going to be when you go
Wow,
to sell. Yeah.
that's a lot to understand at a deep level and to be successful, and certainly does take someone like you to help us look at what that would be like for us, right? um, yeah, so for our listeners, for them to explore their path further in this, how would they get in touch with you and have a conversation with you?
Yep, you can go right to the website, GG, my initials, thefranchiseguide.com. And on there we have you can book a call directly with me. My We do a 20-minute call. Our services are free to anyone calling in. It's We're paid like a real estate agent. We're paid by essentially from the franchise companies, a referral fee. So there's never a fee to you. There's no contracts or anything involved. We simply have a chat. What are your questions around franchising? Will it work for your situation? And does it make sense to have another call? That's it. It's a quick
Mm.
20-minute call. Our second call, we do a deep dive into what the ideal business looks like. What are your skill sets? What type of money do you want to invest? What are your funding options? And your role in the business. And then on our third call is where we put it all together and we discuss franchises, all the franchises that match specifically what you were looking for. That's our process. It's reverse engineered so that we're not spending hours and hours looking at every brand out there when it may be sold out or not available in your market.
Mhm.
So we spend time there. And for those that aren't ready to speak, you can download. There's a resource tab, and I wrote a book, My Exact Guide in Finding Your Perfect
Okay.
Franchise. It's free. It's called Franchise Freedom, and you can buy it on Amazon, but yeah, it's a free download right off the website, and that's a great starting point. It's a quick read, and it goes into what to
Mhm.
consider when looking at a franchise.
Mhm. Have you ever had a call from, say, a business owner, a woman business owner who would like to turn her business into a franchise so that she can step away from it?
Absolutely, yes. We had an individual in the painting industry, and they were looking to essentially convert their business into a
Okay.
franchise. And I said, well, why would you want to convert? What appeals to you about a franchise? And they said basically they've done their own research and had talked to other franchisees, but they really enjoyed the relationships with the customers, and they were involved in the painting process, but they could not figure out CRM and marketing.
Oh, okay.
They were struggling constantly with just how do I market? How do I
Yeah.
acquire new leads? How do I follow up? Because I'm painting, I'm doing my thing, and I don't know how to follow up via text aside from my phone. So they wanted a robust system so that number one, the systems were in place day one to really streamline things. Number two, economies of scale. What they were going to save in painting alone and supplies and paint and things like that alone from the franchisor level would almost pay back that franchise fee given the amount of volume they were doing in business. So economies of scale, the systems, followed by national accounts. By being a franchisee in that particular area, they were able to pick up national accounts, big names,
Mhm.
hardware suppliers and movie theaters and things like this. You would be that first contact for that quote in that business. So
Yeah.
that alone, yes, there is a franchise fee. Yes, there is an ongoing royalty, but you always want to know what am I getting for that franchise fee and those royalties, and the economies of scale, the national accounts, the support systems in place were priceless to that franchisee because they didn't have the time to set all that up.
So that it gives the business more credibility because it has turned into a franchise, which for some people would be very beneficial for them. Like you're saying, for the larger clients that they might want to be would like to attract, but they're not able to do it when they're just a two-person show or something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, you have the big brand name recognition,
Brand
and
name.
which makes a difference. And the national accounts. If you don't have a certain number of franchisees in most states, you can't pick up national accounts.
Oh,
They want you to essentially do business in all 50 states, depending on
yes.
that where that store is located. So so those are some advantages there. And the nice part is it's not like you get access little by little. It's literally you pay the franchise fee. You're going off the training and have full access to the entire system, the entire engine, the call centers, the turnkey marketing, and things like that, where the
Mhm.
franchisor is getting better pricing on paid ads and leads. They're spending the time. They're changing it up from one market to the next. So you're paying for that specialization, right, in your specific market. You're paying for the resources and just the contacts alone.
That's very interesting. Mhm. So I usually ask my guests a question about when they um, noticed for themselves that they had to make some change to how they were operating their lives. Now, you've been in business for yourself for many years. Let's say somewhere along your the line of business there, did you have an experience where you said, I need to remaster my life and work? And what did that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, the first stage was, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, was we wanted to start a family, and I could not
Yeah.
continue leaving at 5 a.m. and coming home at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Uh, Second part was I personally, when I ran my business, it was a lot of hours. I had an operations manager, but not a general manager that I can rely on. So the hours were a lot, right? They were still putting in a lot of hours, especially that first year, the builder year. So just trusting that I needed someone to kind of take some stuff off my plate that could allow me the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do. So
Mhm.
I hired a general manager. It took a lot of interviews, but that individual had so many years, couple of decades of experience in the industry itself, and they were able to streamline certain efforts, cut back on certain costs, renegotiate with vendors. And it took me a little while. I felt like it was a hard time for me to kind of give up control of the business. And you're not. You're really just allowing that partner in the business to say, maybe we should do business this way. It was opening up the book so they can make decisions based off of financials. Everyone has great advice, but can the business actually afford it? So they were able to say, every decision is going to be based off of the numbers. So we opened up the profit loss, the balance sheet. We gave them access to QuickBooks, and essentially, I said, you know what, this is what I need for you to really handle. I'm going to work on the bigger picture, the national account agreements and things like that. And I will say, my son started playing soccer at the age of 4, became a soccer coach. He'll be 18 next month, and I've never missed a soccer game due to work. So that's
Okay.
my success story. Some people like to talk about I have 10 houses and cars, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, it was the time freedom. Never miss my daughter's events, birthday parties, Girl Scouts, any of that. So that's my personal success story. But it wasn't just a franchise; it was hiring the right people. Those people are the lifeblood of any business, and hiring them, trusting them to run the business. May not be your first initial hire, but get put trust in them. Have them go through a interview process, and you just kind of know when you find that right
You
person.
know. Yeah, yeah. I love how you've redefined success, right? I think a lot of people are concerned about redefining it that way, but I think that's one of the things that all through our careers, I know you hear lots of people talking about missing, kids' concerts and things like that. So looking at what the definition of success is, and as I always say, is not all about the money, right?
And that changed for me. In my early 20s, it was the cars.
Yeah,
It was so I'm not going to say I never valued money, and I obviously do. But ultimately, to your point, yeah, it's like what is you miss it, and then they end up now maybe things start to slow down now, and then they're off to college or getting married and moving off, and it's like man, I wish I didn't miss that
yeah,
time because
yeah.
you only have so much time with them. So
That's true. Yeah. So this is incredible for our listeners, okay? And I want to ask our listeners to continue to get in touch with you, but also to watch other videos on Executive Encore that all seem to be starting to talk about these things, redefining our success, and what are the options for us if we are looking for a change in our perception of what security is. So please subscribe to Executive Encore wherever you listen to your podcast or wherever you watch your videos. I would be grateful if you leave a review, as it helps other women to find these particular interviews and stories about what other people are doing. You can also look at resources by joining the conversation on my website and on my new membership, which is Executive Encore Network for Women. You can contact me by email to find out more about that membership and that community. Add your comments, because it's all about you having a voice. Okay, that's what really matters to me, is that you have a voice in what you are doing going forward. And finally, please subscribe to the Sunday Encore newsletter. This Sunday, October 12th, you will see the full process of following this interview with Giuseppe. I will write a blog on the topic. And for newsletter subscribers and members, they will see a special offer from Giuseppe as well, only for subscribers and for members of the community. So please subscribe so that you don't miss out. And visit my website, read the blog, and visit Giuseppe's website and his social media as well. As you can see in the ticker, there's lots of places to find them, and you don't need to write it down furiously, because I'll have it in the show notes anyway. Okay, so this is where your Executive Encore begins. This is where you start to live and work and lead differently with a healthy mindset and self-trust. And I would say this week, one more, is a different perception of what security is. Okay. And that's important to all of us. So until next time, take care of yourself, do what's best for you, and don't jeopardize what you've built for yourself. Bye bye.